Hi Virgo, this is your Vedic Astrology forecast for November 2014. Now this forecast applies to you if you have the moon or the ascendant in the sign of Virgo in Vedic Astrology. Vedic Astrology places more emphasis on the moon and on the ascendant for transits, and Western astrology places more emphasis on the sun sign, and they also place it on the ascendant. However, the two systems of astrology are different because they use different zodiacs. Western astrology uses the tropical zodiac, and Vedic astrology uses the sidereal zodiac. So you may find that the planetary positions will be a bit different in both systems of astrology. In Western, they may be in certain signs, and in Vedic astrology, they might have switched to a different sign. So that's why it's important to see which signs you guys have your ascendant and your moon in Vedic astrology. So you could just go to my website and find out. Now, that being said, both systems of astrology are valid. Both systems of astrology are accurate, and they both have wonderful tools of prediction. They both have wonderful tools for determining our psychological profile. They will both enhance your life for sure. They're just two different systems, so it's better not to confuse the two systems. If you're going to be following along with my videos, then you could just follow along, make sure where your moon or your ascendant are placed in Vedic astrology. Both systems of astrology will apply to you. They just use different systems. So if you're looking at Western forecasts, make sure you use your Western sun sign, which is typically the case. And if you're following along with my videos on Vedic astrology or anybody else's videos on Vedic astrology, then you would use the position of your moon or your ascendant. Now, Saturn is going to be entering your third house on November 2nd, and he's going to be there for the next 2.5 years or so. The past 2.5 years, he's been in your second house of Libra. And if your moon is in Virgo, not your ascendant, but your moon, that means that you're just finishing up the Saturn Sadisate. And Sadisate is the 7.5 years that Saturn transits our natal moon. So if you have moon in Virgo, the Sadisate would have started as soon as Saturn entered Leo. And because the Sadisate happens when Saturn transits the 12th house from the moon sign itself, and the second house from the moon. So again, not from the ascendant, but from the moon. And usually the Saturn Sadisate is, it's proves to be pretty challenging. It definitely, imposes changes in the person's life. So there may be a lot of changes, certain challenges to me. Usually on the first Saturn Sadisate, there's the death of the grandparents or one of the grandparents. Usually during the second Sadisate, then there's the death of the parents, and typically during the third Saturn Sadisate, that's when we meet with our own departure from this life. So Saturn's Sadisate definitely brings changes. It definitely brings sometimes a certain amount of turmoil and a certain amount of distress, because Saturn is transiting the moon sign, which represents our emotions and our feelings, our thoughts, the way we perceive the world. It is a very sensitive transit for those of us who have to go through it. And you just finished that Sadisate, which is wonderful. You Saturn already tested your strength. So you already probably became stronger because of this Saturn Sadisate. If you already have a spiritual inner life, then Saturn's saute is okay. You know how to accept it. You know how to use your spiritual wisdom. But if you don't have an inner life when Saturn saute hits you, then you will develop an inner life, because that's what Saturn does. He gives us certain struggles, certain depression sometimes, a certain stress that makes us look into our inner lives to ask, okay, why am I going through this? What's really happening? Why am I suddenly going through all these ups and downs? And you've been there, you've done that, you have the t-shirt to prove it. The wonderful news is that now Saturn is moving into your third house. Your Saturn saute is over, you're wiser, you're older, you're more knowledgeable, etc. Now you can use that wisdom to spread it to the world. And that's what the third house is. It's communication, whether it's in writing or just overall in general communication. Now's the time to use that wisdom that you gained through Saturn's saute, and you can impart your knowledge. Now you can teach others. You can show what it is that you learned during this 7.5 years of, certain, changes, life changes. Not necessarily difficult. They're not always difficult. When I went through my first Saturn saute, when I went through the first one, my grandma did pass away. She passed away when it was transiting my moon sign. But I didn't necessarily go through like depression or anything like that, but I did go through a lot of changes. I moved to another state. I enrolled in a school, and there were just a lot of things happening very quickly for me during that time. And so that's what you've probably just expected. You're leaving that already. Now Saturn's going to be aspecting your 5th house, and Jupiter is currently aspecting your 5th house from his 11th, he's in your 11th house, so from his exalted state in Cancer, he's aspecting your 5th. Okay, so when this happens, when there's a double aspect of Jupiter and Saturn on a particular house, that house becomes activated. And if you have any planets in that house, in the sign of Capricorn in Vedic astrology, then whatever that planet happens to rule, those houses will become activated. Now in this case, your 5th house has to do with creativity, with intelligence, with subjects that we learn, with children. This might be a time that now that you're moving forward, now that things are becoming more settled for you, it might be a time that for those of you who are in that stage of life, that you're thinking about having children maybe. For others of you, this is a time of creativity now, of focusing on making something in the world, making something creative to share with the world, where you can use that creativity to impart your wisdom in that way. Some people do it through artistic means, some people do it through music, through composing, through writing poems, through writing articles, through writing novels. Whatever it is, however it is that it is unique to you. This is a wonderful time to focus on that and to share it with the world. Saturn is also going to be aspecting your 9th house, and 9th house generally has to do with travels. It has to do with our higher education, if you're in college, or if you're already in a university, or if you're planning on attending college or university. Saturn's going to be activating that energy. Now, Saturn will bring both his 5th house energy and his 6th house energy, because he rules these 2 houses for you. And he'll be bringing the energy of those houses towards his aspects. So there's going to be some some challenges because he rules the sixth house, some competition to overcome, maybe some restrictions or maybe some obstacles in regards to those ninth house matters, whether it is traveling to another country, traveling long distance, or traveling wherever it is you go, or transferring to a college or to a university, or if you're already enrolled, there may be some struggles, some obstacles, some challenges, and it's never easy when you're in school. There's, you know, you got to juggle work, personal life, and homework and all that, and that definitely comes at a price. It's very difficult to do. Saturn is going to be testing that in your life during this time. If you're in school or if you plan on traveling, he may put some tests in your life in regards to a father figure, or in regards to your teachers, in regards to your professors, in regards to your spiritual guru. And so there may be something that Saturn is going to stir the pot, and he's going to bring these moments, these types of circumstances into your life, or he'll be bringing these into the lives of those father figures that you look up to, your own father or your guru, etc. So there's going to be you know, something going on in regards to your ninth house. Now, it depends on the dasha that you're running. If you're running a wonderful planetary cycle where maybe you have Venus in the ninth house and he's in his own sign in Taurus, and you're running the 20-year Venus cycle, then there's really nothing to worry about with this Saturn aspect or with the Saturn transit aspect in your ninth house, because you're running the Venus dasha, and that one is going to supersede any transit that happens. So it's always good to remember, whatever planetary cycle you're running, whatever dasha, that one will always supersede anything that the transits will be bringing into your life. The transits, the only thing that they do is they activate certain events, but they only activate events that are already written in the chart. So something is written in the birth chart when we're born, okay? And then you go through a planetary cycle, but things don't actually become activated until the transit happens. But if the transit, whatever the event is not in your natal birth chart, then the transits will not have a lot of power. They'll still bring a little bit of, you know, clouds into your life. That's it, though. So it all has to do with the planetary dasha that you're running, the cycle that you're currently running at this time. So definitely keep that in mind and find out in your own personal chart what planetary cycle you're running, so you can see how Saturn's going to be playing its part in your life with his transiting your third house, aspecting your ninth and your fifth. Now, since Saturn rules your fifth house and he's going to be aspecting your ninth house, these are two dharmic influences in your life for the next 2.5 years, because Saturn is a Dharma Lord. He rules the fifth house, and he's aspecting a Dharma house, the ninth. So he's also going to be bringing in this dharmic influence, and most likely this is probably going to translate into a deeper fascination with philosophy, a deeper fascination with spirituality, with a higher level of thinking, a higher level of knowledge, wisdom to be gained through this aspect. And this is also going to, the positive vibe is also going to be translated towards your ninth house matters as well. So yes, there may be some competition, as I mentioned earlier, because he rules the sixth house, but there's also going to be some good fortune coming your way, some good luck in regards to ninth house. So For example, if you go on a long distance trip, if you decide to travel, you may meet some challenges at first, but then the blessings will come right after that, because Saturn has to give both results. He's not just going to give the results of the 6th house. He's not just going to give the results of the 5th house. He's going to bring both elements into your life and into his aspects. So he's going to bring some blessings. You may have had trouble in the beginning of college at first, but then there's going to be blessings. You're going to have moments of flow, moments of creativity coming your way through this aspect. And Saturn is going to be aspecting your 12th house as well. That's another element of spirituality. Since the 5th house has to do with devotion to a higher source, or to God, to Brahma, whoever it is you consider a higher source. The 5th house has to do with devotion. The 9th house also has to do with devotion and worship. And the way the 5th house does it is through mantras, through prayers. And the way that the 9th house expresses it is through going to an institution, to going to either a church or a temple. So they're both types, they're both two different types of devotion, that the way we express it, it's either through prayer with the 5th house or through worship by going to a temple through the 9th house. And now this is going to be mixed in with your 12th house as well. And the 12th house is spirituality in an isolated manner. It means meditation. It means you're doing it in your own room. You're doing it in isolation. For example, monks or nuns who are in a monastery, they're doing it through isolation, because in a way you're secluded from society. And your 5th lord Saturn is going to be aspecting that 12th house of meditation, of yoga, of, you know, ascetic, renouncing the material world. So there's going to be an element of devotion, an element of worship, or devotion to a higher source. And it doesn't have to be religious. Maybe it'll be devotion to higher philosophy, that you're thinking now of studying into a different higher knowledge, that you suddenly become interested, because the 5th house has to do with our intellect. It is our mind. And wherever the 5th house influence is, our interest is in that sector of life. Then we want to dig deeper. Our intelligence wants to know more, wants to gather knowledge regarding that sector of life, wherever it is. So in this case, it'll be activating your 9th house and his own house, the 5th house. He rules Capricorn. So there it is. He's going to be activating the 5th house, the 9th house, and the 12th house. There's so much spirituality being activated here for you for the next 2.5 years. And this is wonderful. There's a lot of wisdom to be gained. There's a lot of knowledge to learn, and this is going to be an adventurous time for you. This is going to be a spiritual quest. Now, during the first half of November, there's going to be a huge emphasis on your 2nd house. This is your house of income, house of wealth, of resources. You know, you're going to have Venus there until the 11th. Sun's going to be there until the 16th. Mercury is going to be entering that sign on the 4th. There's some wonderful energy happening here with Venus and Mercury joining together in the 2nd house. Venus rules that sign, so that's wonderful. Mercury is your ascendant lord. He's your 10th lord. So there seems to be some very favorable energy going your way in terms of income. Sun is also going to be there, and he rules the 12th house of expenses, expenditures. So just be mindful of that. Either try not to spend money on things that you don't really need, or just be mindful that there might be some sudden expenses that you might have to face because of Sun. And this might be more so during the second half of the month, because during the second half of the month, Venus and Sun will be entering your third house. So during the second half of the month, Venus isn't going to be activating his own sign anymore, the second house of wealth, of income. He's going to be in the third house with Sun and with Saturn. So there might be a little bit of delays or a little bit of restriction in that sector of your life. And so take advantage of the first half of the month. Take advantage of the bonuses you're getting or the extra income that's coming in, and then just save it for a later time, for when you need it, for when something unexpected comes up, especially during the second half of the month. Now, Mars is going to be transiting your fourth house throughout most of the month of November. He's going to be there until the 27th. And Mars is going to be bringing in this element of aggressiveness, of ambitious energy into your fourth house. So you might feel like all of a sudden you have all this energy to maybe redecorate, to fix things in your house, to move things around. You'll have just all of a sudden this impulse to make changes to your home because of this Mars transiting. And then Mars will also be influencing your emotions during this time, because the fourth house has to do with our emotional nature. So just be mindful that there might spring up some insecurities or some defensiveness because of Mars being here. Maybe a certain emotional aggressiveness that you might feel during this time. But Jupiter, though, he rules your fourth house, and he's in your 11th house at this time, exalted, and he's aspecting your fifth house. So Mars is going to be transiting, but Jupiter is strong, Jupiter is wonderful. So this transit of Mars causing these emotional ups and downs are just going to be very temporary, and they're not going to have a huge impact because Jupiter is strong. So Jupiter's protecting his own house. Jupiter's taking care of that part. So you know, just be mindful that you might experience some emotional ups and downs, some aggression or defensiveness or things like that. But don't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about it. It's not going to be huge because it's only Mars. It's not like it's, you know, 3 different planets being in your fourth house. So it's just a small passing cloud during this time. And then Mars is going to be aspecting your 7th house of relationships, of business partnerships, of your significant other. And there might be maybe some competition, some disputes, maybe a little bit of argumentation or something like that. Mars is going to be bringing that in, but again, Jupiter rules that house. Jupiter rules your 7th house. Jupiter's exalted. Jupiter's doing fine. He's doing wonderful, and he's also aspecting your 7th house. So with Saturn moving away from your 2nd house, he's not going to be aspecting your 4th house anymore. And then with Jupiter aspecting your 7th house, Jupiter aspecting your 3rd house, he's going to be aspecting Saturn. There's a lot of positive energy happening here with this Saturn moving into your 3rd house. Not that it was bad, because Saturn was exalted in your 2nd house. Exalted Saturn, that's wonderful, you know, that's good. But now Saturn's going to be in your 3rd. He's going to be aspected by Jupiter. So don't worry too much about this transit of Mars. It's only temporary, it's short term. Jupiter's protecting all those significations. He's protecting the 4th house of your home, your emotions. It's a wonderful time. He's protecting your 7th house. Mars is aspecting, but Jupiter's also aspecting. And the aspect of Jupiter will take away 10,000 blemishes. It will take away 10,000, negative things. So Jupiter is a wonderful blessing for you, and just keep that in mind. Use the positive Jupiter energy in your 11th house to make new friends, to make new connections, to meet new people, to get yourself out there. Focusing on your higher ideals is perfect during this time. Focusing on your higher aspiration, on lofty ideas, because Jupiter is in the 11th house. The 11th house has to do with our hopes and wishes, and it has to do with our hopes and wishes coming true, especially with Jupiter exalted there. It's not just Jupiter in the 11th house. Jupiter is exalted in this house. This is probably a time for you to focus on those higher ideals, focus on what you want, what dreams you want to come true, what wishes you want to fulfill. This is the time to get to work on that, because Jupiter is going to make it an effortless ease for you to accomplish all those goals, all those dreams and wishes that you have in mind during this time. Well, this was your monthly forecast for November 2014. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for additional forecasts, and don't forget to subscribe.